this is a continuation of the interview that I did with Ascendant Nomad earlier, like from last week. So if you want to catch the first part of this, I will leave a link in the description below. Thanks again, Ascendant Nomad, for coming and stopping by. It was an absolute pleasure and a joy to get to talk to you. All right, let's get rolling. Yeah.
So going back to Wolfpack, you've only listed 4 unique playstyles, and there are quite I think they're pretty solid pillars of playstyles, but it feels like from my experience anyways, there's more than that. There's definitely more than that, more than 4 playstyles, and there's more hybrids of playstyles. And I'd argue some of the best players in the games, like your Ceridiuses, your Pandas, your Patty Cakes, they can make up certain, they can switch between alpha, beta, gamma, omega at any point in the game, depending on what the situation demands of them. So what do you call those players?
Absolutely, yeah. I was wondering when this would come up, because this always comes up in conversation. So 2 things. First of all, typically speaking, the higher you go in your skill, the more beta you become, the more flexible you start to design yourself around, right? That's particularly in Destiny what's very powerful, right? Other games will format how the engagements go for a more, like, say, alpha playstyle. Like, that seems to be like the kind of the high-end goal. But for Destiny in particular, and I would argue most games all seem to eventually become to a place where they are beta, right? Because at the end of the day, flexibility allows you to play those other roles on the fly, right?
Absolutely.
And lastly, the second point is that really good players play whatever the hell they want, right?
Yeah,
like for myself,
totally.
I can switch between an alpha, a gamma, a beta, an omega, right? Just on the spot. I've got multiple builds to support different play styles, right? But even within, let's say, my alpha playstyle, I run a Mida multi-tool, Fellwinter's Lie, the Astrocyte Verse on Middle Tree Nova Warp, so I'm very fast. Like, I'm faster than... I'm probably pissing people off. I'm faster than absolutely everything else in the game. I'm able to get to the enemy's team.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know, big claim, right? But here, get this.
Yeah.
I can get to the enemy's flag point on my control before they finish capturing it.
No. Say it one more time. See what happens.
I am the fastest Warlock in the game.
He's the fastest gun in the West.
That's
gents,
right. That's
ladies
right.
and gentlemen. You heard it here first.
Yeah, it's just the amount of speed that I'm able to punch out, right? But my loadout goes for the Mida multi-tool and a shotgun. Mida, just because of the speed and the awareness that I can get.
Yeah.
But the Mida also offers me a large amount of flexibility, right? I can play at really long ranges, and it's not terrible in close ranges, especially after a follow-up from a shotgun blast. You know, you get really good at shotgun, immediately swapping to the Mida to finish him off just out of habit, right?
Sure.
But there are certain times when I'm getting shut down as an alpha player, so I'll lean harder in on my Mida and play kind of like a beta, or maybe even sometimes omega, and just use my speed as a repositioning tool, right? So that's what I would say to that. I would say good players can play whatever the hell they want, and especially when you're able to swap loadouts, they'll be able to switch to whatever they want. But at the end of the day, they will have something that they kind of like, this is more me, right?
Yeah.
This is more than what... this is more with what I do than other things. I can do those other things, but this is primarily what I end up doing, because
exactly.
One of the things.
Go ahead. Most snipers tend to be omega playstyles, but you know they will understand that certain maps or teams will not peak those sniper lanes, so they have to have a backup playstyle to complement that. And like that's similar to what I'm going through right now. Right now, my favorite loadout is the multi-Mac, or the multi-Chad, as we call it affectionately. Multi-Chad CCX with Killing Wind and Kill Clip. I have a Frozen Orbit with Quick Draw, RIP.
Yeah.
And that's my preferred loadout, because it allows me to be alpha and omega, because I can entry frag with an alpha with the multi-Mac, and then I can post up in the back with the Frozen Orbit and do that. But I'll have a secondary loadout, which is Messenger Duality, which is much more beta friendly, as it were. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's what you described, if we were coming into a game and we saw you running the multi-Chad and the Frozen Orbit, we would identify that typically as a beta playstyle, right? Because of what you just described. They're capable of handling close range engagements pretty good, and they're capable of handling long range engagements pretty good, right? So definitely the ability to flex around. Like I said, like really good players will eventually, all players, I even talked about this in the beta video, will borrow some of the flexibility, because you just need it. And like there's just some teams that you're just going to need to be able to flex around, right?
Yeah.
But the primary idea is that you as a team, let's say I load in with a group of my guys, right? And I know maybe I've never talked to them before, but I know what their roles are. That like I'm able to see that. I know how generally they're going to interact within an engagement. I'm able to kind of predict their movements in order to make my movements or my engagements even more devastating, right? Because I'm able to kind of think ahead for them. We're all able to kind of share this one hive mind of being able to close in on a space or do this particular tactic. And then there's the whole thing about tactics where I can call out, suppress and flank, I'm flanking left, right? And the Gambas Omegas immediately know what to do. They already have that kind of pre-programmed in the back of their mind, and then they can just wait for my ready push call, right?
Sure.
It formats everybody in such a way to make sure that they all are operating towards a singular focused goal, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, that's interesting to hear. So Omegas in particular are definitely some of the rarer ones. And yeah, probably for you, from what I've just heard, probably like, yeah, an Omega, maybe even Beta, because, of what we talked about in there for sure. But I would love to get that conversation going for longer, but we've been here for a minute and I've got some questions from the community
Sure.
that I would love to throw at you.
Means.
Let me bring this up here real quick. Okay. Emerald in our community chat asks, by the way, you can answer these just like, super fast. What are your top 3 favorite exotics in each slot and why? I would just say just pick 3 exotics probably because the other one.
Ooh, okay. The top 3 exotics in each slot. So number 1, the kinetic slot, it's a cross between Chaperone and Dead Man's Tale right now because,
Hex Mechanica, my man.
I mean, Dead Man's Tale is just a lot of fun, but I feel more satisfied when I chain roadborne kills with my Chaperone, so I'll give it a Chaperone.
Okay.
Energy slots. Let me think. Energy slot, I feel like needs to go to Divinity for either being just the best all-round PvE thing out there, or what else? What's a? Do I run many exotics in? I'm trying to think.
Pretty good question, I guess.
Why did that there's a lot of stuff that I run, but I'm just drawing a blank right now as to like which one of them is my favorite. Give me a second here. I'll give you a straight answer. No, what am I saying? I just mentioned it the other second here. Duality. Duality is my favorite.
I was wondering if duality was going to come up, but I didn't want to poison your.
No. Yeah. No, definitely duality. Sorry, I was like thinking about all the other stuff like Graviton Lance and Trinity Ghoul and all that.
Yeah.
I was like, no, of course, duality. Duality is my favorite special exotic. Heavy exotic. I'm going to unfortunately give this one to Truth.
Truth.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's just so much fun.
I remember D1 Truth, that freaking ridiculous levels of tracking. Yeah. All right. Those are respectable.
Apologies to any Gambit mains in your videos, watching your videos.
All right. From a member of ours, Corn Dog. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I feel like I should ask. What does Cammy Cake's beard smell like?
It smells like victory.
Good answer. J True.
Weebery and lots of weeb.
And lots of weeb. J True asks, he always seems so calm and well adjusted. What's his routine for keeping a clear head?
Well, fundamentally, I remember that this is a video game. It's meant to be fun. And that I just remember, like, it's just not that serious. If the world ends tomorrow, it's just a video game. It's not life or death. I'm playing to have fun. I try and remember that I'm here to have fun. And what really helps too, I've got a video coming on this as well, is that I just remembered why I love playing Destiny in the first place, and the answer is the gunplay.
Yeah,
so to me, it's just about keeping perspective. I definitely have my moments where I'm very, very heated and I blame things and I exhibit scrub mentality and all the rest of that. But it's for me, Destiny's just fun. No amount of community complaints will ever affect that for me. And the times when it does, well, I just walk away and I play something else. I just try and keep a balanced lid on everything, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. Kay Farrens, who actually you ended up doing a little bit of Crucible gameplay review for him.
Yes.
He asks, what's your biggest struggle with content creation and how you managed to get through it?
Oh boy. Okay. My biggest struggle with content creation was getting out of my own head. So I made videos professionally for a living.
Oh, really?
With freelance. Yeah, I worked for the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is the equivalent of the BBC, but for Canada.
I did not know that. That's cool.
So I worked for them for about 5-6 years. I was first a production assistant, then an assistant editor, and then like an occasional cameraman when they needed me to do something with the camera. And so I learned a lot about how production works. I learned a lot about how videos are made and films and documentaries and all that are made. So to me, coming from that world was a huge adjustment for me, because there's like the writing process for a lot of these shows takes months, right? And there's always things that are being changed on the day. So I was trying to bring that process into YouTube, which, as you can imagine, is too slow.
Yeah, just trying to square peg round hole, I'd imagine. Right?
Exactly. So when I tried to do that, the scripts would be fantastic. They would be amazing, but they would take 3 months to produce. And a lot of the time it was because I was thinking about all the different variables and how people might interpret certain words and how people might respond to this line, this passage and the other passage. And, I definitely got faster and I got better over time, but I still felt like I was giving myself too much permission to dither on like making stuff for the sake of the creative process. So the one thing that I did that changed my content creation life completely was I went to my best friend Eddie and I said, Eddie, I'm having trouble making videos. Can you yell at me when I don't make a video for a while? And he said, yeah. And that was the day I got a manager. So that process of having somebody else hold me accountable is the biggest thing that transformed my creation life, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Interesting. I was probably going to be the last thing I was going to expect, I'll be honest. That's interesting to hear. That is really interesting to hear.
Well, I think a lot of people are curious about like, how do I learn to edit or how do I learn to write and all that, but that was never a concern for me because I was always in that world. That's where my education was from and all of that, and I had that experience.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to unfortunately, perhaps fortunately, end this with a very non-serious question for you. From Pato, the Bow Acolyte. He asks, I apologize for this in advance, what's your favorite type of cheese?
Mountaintop.
That's the answer I was expecting to go, but perfect nonetheless. Well, everybody at home, if you are not already subscribed to Ascendant Nomad, what the hell are you doing? Go subscribe to him right now. Go check out his channel. He's got some really fantastic stuff. If you like our stuff, we're trying to help, you guys get better at the game. You're going to like his stuff because he honestly does it a bit better. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Nomad, do you have anything else you want to close with? Any other closing thoughts?
Not really. I just want to say thank you for reaching out and thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your show. It's always a pleasure to talk about Crucible and talk about new ideas. And this was really fun. And to the folks at home, I just want to let you guys know that it's just a video game. It's not that serious. And use whatever the hell you want to use in the Crucible. And don't apologize for it to anyone.
We even have a rule, the number one rule of combat is to not fight fair, right? To use the thing that's the best, right? Anyway, like I said, go subscribe to his channel. He's got some awesome stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a comment down below if you have somebody else you want us to try to talk to. We'll try to reach out. You probably don't know the closing line, do you, Nomad? I ask everybody.
I don't.
You don't. Bless your faces and deuces.
Bless your faces.